Welcome to the Fitness Plus Technology Podcast for club owners, operators, and fitness professionals. Each week, host Bryan O'Rourke brings you an expert interview with a global influencer at the crossroads of fitness and technology. You gain the insights, tools, and inspiration you need to stay connected to the pulse for what matters most for your business in the age of exponential technologies.
Hello, listeners, and welcome to the podcast. I'm your host, Bryan O'Rourke. Welcome to episode 174. Can you believe it's 2025? I hope you had a fantastic holiday and that you're back and rip-roaring, ready to go. I look forward to seeing many of you at the Health and Fitness Association's convention in Las Vegas in March, so please connect with me. And for you Fitness Industry Technology Council members, we are doing a social event that Tuesday night before the show, so stay tuned. We'll be sharing social posts, etc., and I look forward to seeing all of you there. Core Health and Fitness will also be present, so it'll be a great time, and looking forward to it. So on today's episode, we have a chat with our friend from down under, Bryan McDonald, who is the CEO of NovoFit. NovoFit is a partner of Core, and we've done business with some of our other entities with NovoFit. Really good people, and Barry today goes through a few key topics. Number one is fitness trends that he sees globally and in Australia. Number two is his unique perspective, because Barry both operated in YMCAs, he was an operator in for-profit clubs, and now he's a supplier on the supplier side. So he shares his kind of unique view of being on in both those arenas of the industry space. We talk a little bit about Stoicism and various leadership concepts, and then finally, Barry shares his pearls of wisdom. So again, welcome to the episode, and without further ado, let's welcome our guest, Bryan McDonald, CEO of NovoFit.
Well, welcome everyone. I have the pleasure today of visiting with my friend Bryan McDonald from NovoFit down under. Barry, how are you doing?
I'm doing well, thanks, Bryan. How are you?
I'm doing great. It was really wonderful to have you visit us here in Southern California not that long ago when you came down to the Core offices. It was great to spend time with you.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. I think when you get to share a meal and maybe a couple of quiet drinks with people that you really respect and can have fun with, I think that's a great mix. And Adam and myself really enjoyed the time with you and the team. And I got a small part of my heart for the States. I really love it there, particularly California. It's a great spot in the world. So you're very lucky.
Yes, and then I feel the same about you. We were talking about me heading back down. I haven't been to Oz in a while, but a couple of years. But I love going there and have the benefit of having a number of colleagues and friends, very good friends that are Australian. So I look forward to seeing you on the other side of the pond soon.
Yeah, I like the sound of that. We punch above our weight, us Aussies. We enjoy coming over to the US because you guys are big and grand and you're on top of everything. But we're kind of the underdogs, and we like that.
Yeah, it's a good place. I like underdogs. I always have. So, Barry, before we got started on the recording here, we talked about a few areas that we'd like to chat about, and I know we explored some of this during our time together recently. You know, a lot of people, and you would understand this because you get to travel the world as I do, get to see various trends in the industry. And since with NovoFit, you have a lot of different clients in the industry in Australia, so you get to see a lot of things. Plus, as we'll have in the show notes, the listeners who don't already know you would understand that you are in the unique position of having been an operator in a number of different fitness businesses, and now you're more on the supplier side. So what do you see right now as some of the more interesting trends going on in your market?
Yeah, I think interesting is a good point. We're quite fast and agile in Australia. The barrier to entry to a new experience and a new fitness or wellness experience is quite low. So we tend to be early adopters in a lot of things. But
Yes.
I think we're seeing, and this is globally as well in some of my travels and dealing with others, but the social fitness is definitely growing, which I think is great. I think that's really exciting. The High Roxes of the world and the group wellness and plunge therapy. And in Australia, we have a big park run culture. And a lot of that is underpinned by social connected. And I think that's a really cool thing for young people and older people to have exposure to. So that's definitely something that's grown in the last 12 months. Maybe it's a post-COVID experience, I think, where people are looking for that human connection, which is understandable. I think some of the other things, like that's probably a good dovetail into recovery and wellness. We're seeing a lot of emphasis placed on mental health and the benefits of wellness and exercise and fitness on that. And so in Australia, there's a lot of operators that are trying to race to the front line to get some recovery and wellness projects happening, whether that be red light therapy, contrast therapy, plunge pools. We're seeing a lot of that growth in new business, but also existing operators trying to figure out a way, how do they implement that and activate it in their own facility to keep people engaged. So they're probably the two that are quite fresh. It's interesting. There's this new thing. I don't know if you've heard of it, Brian, but strength training tends to pop up recently. And, that's in Australia, that's a really big growth area. We're seeing facilities fitting out strength areas, 70% of an entire club and, 20% cardio and 10% core, where it was probably 5 years ago, it was the opposite of that. And so the consumer is really demanding now more strength training options, and for all ages and all genders, which I think is a really great thing for the industry.
I agree. It's funny you mentioned that. I went to a Crunch that just opened, Crunch Fitness near my home, and during the holidays, they were just, they just opened at the beginning of the year, and it was what you said. It's about 70% strength on the main floor. It's strength. The cardio is up on a mezzanine. You can't really even see it when you go in the place, and it's as you described, functional strength, all that. That's really the thing globally.
Yeah, and I think what's been great, what we hear from operators, we've got a couple of really great multi-site brands in Australia: Revo Fitness, Genesis Fitness. What we're hearing from them is that they're putting these strength options in and increasing the capacity of their strength training, and the members love it. And I think that's a really exciting thing for me, because not just what we're seeing in terms of what's exciting, it's actually the pickup, and users are actually enjoying it. And I love strength training. It's been something that I've done forever. I'm not a big cardio fan, but it's awesome to see a shift in the model, and that users are responding to it. I can't see it stopping. I think manufacturers and distributors like us are trying to figure out ways of how we continue to support our customers and meet them where they need it, which means there's more cool strength options coming to the market. And so I think that's only going to grow.
Yeah, I agree with you. And as you know, you've been doing it a long time, but the science continues to just push the realization of the importance of that. And to your point, for women in particular with osteoporosis, I mean, it's good to see, actually. Do you think, because I train both in cardio and strength and, different modalities, do you see more of a hybrid kind of mix? Because VO2 max is still a great longevity indicator. So it's not like you don't want to do any cardio.
Of course.
But what do you think about that mix? Do you think it's just going to become more integrated, or what do you think long run?
I think where it's landed right now is probably where it'll finish. And it does depend on the consumer and the user, I suppose.
Yeah,
so
sure.
But the multi-site clubs like an Anytime Fitness or a Snap Fitness, I think they've really got the blend right. It's probably a 60-40 split with strength and functional and stretch area of strength, and then the rest being cardio. But to your point, there's always going to be the need for cardio, and we want to continue to. Sometimes the further we get away from where things used to be, we've got to realize that there was a reason that's how it used to be, and it should still be. But I think what we'll see more of is that personalization around strength. Facilities that are strength only, I think, are not too far away. And I know globally there's some of those experiences where there's absolutely no cardio; it's just strength. But I think it'll be different depending on consumer and whereabouts it is. in Australia.
Yeah, that's fair. And as you know from over the years, the trends always, the pendulum can swing a little, kind of until it finds its happy balance. But yeah, strength is not going anywhere. And I agree with you on the social fitness too. Hyrox is doing incredibly well globally with all the kind of competition. Speaking of personalization with your best and what it's doing as a community, I think you're right. And as you saw in my recent deck on trends for 2025, yeah, that's very real. And as you brought up, is authentic experiences. And from Accenture's report, I mentioned that in there. You're absolutely right. People, I think the stats around 50% of people want physical experiences that are health and fitness oriented, that are authentic, and it's still a very real need in the market.
Do you think wellness in the States? I know, our recent trip, we had some good discussions about that. We're hearing a lot of that from our partners over there, and seeing that innovative kind of new product field is a lot around wellness. Are you seeing the growth in the States similar to what Australia is experiencing?
If there are pockets of that, as you've toured over here, I think there's still a question mark as to what that, because that experience can be different things, right? As you mentioned, plunging, sauna, which is very, the science behind sauna, red light. So you see these different trends. But as far as a whole package of what that looks like, I think there's still some innovation left to go there to figure out, what you're really trying to do is delivering a wellness experience that's not necessarily all fitness with a touch of other things. There are many different of these models out there that are kind of just emerging now. So I don't, as there are add-on concepts that come into existing fitness facilities to try to reach that need. I think it's going to be curious to see in the next 5 years how that emerges in the market.
Yeah, it's going to be a fun ride. I think at the end of the day, the user is going to get a great option, and I think that's exciting to me, because that sort of pushes a better outcome for the person, but also business owners for an opportunity for growth and commercializing this new field.
No, exactly right. And for you, given your experience, because you've been in the industry for a while, I'm not going to give away your age, but for a while, you've been at NovoFit now, CEO, for about a little over 2.5 years. And before that, working, at Jets, at Good Life, at you worked in operations, and then also in nonprofits, as I mentioned before. What are your learnings in those roles? And now here you are with an industry that continues to evolve on the service side. What things have benefited you in NovoFit from that background that you have in real operations?
Yeah, it's a great question, and I'm lucky enough to have worked in those brands and then be on this side and be a supplier. You definitely look through a different lens. When you've been out in the field, in a club, selling memberships, dealing with customer complaints, bathroom issues, equipment downtime, competition. When you've been in that world and tried to obviously do a great job in that role at the time, that memory still sticks in the front of my mind, and all the decisions we make at NovoFit about how we support customers. And I think there's a couple of things. I think as an operator, I would underestimate what suppliers could do for me and how they could support me. I think that's one thing that a lot of operators, the ones that do really well, engage their supplier, ask lots of questions, share what their challenges are, and then really thrive from the support that they get. And I think as a supplier, we walk into 100 different facilities a month that have very different segments and very different challenges. But in the end, they're all trying to have an impact on people's health and fitness. So there's a lot of learnings there. And I think as an operator, I probably underestimated that. So that's one of the learnings. I think the more people that I interact with and deal with on this side of the fence that haven't been an operator, don't necessarily understand what it feels like to be there in the heat of things, and don't understand just the requirements to really make sure that operator is successful as a supplier, operator partnership. Our vision at NovoFit is to be the most dependable fitness equipment supplier in Australia, and that comes from me being an operator and knowing that the pain points really were around that. It's around how do you get something fixed immediately if it's broken? How do you troubleshoot and work with your supplier? Because there's enough challenges day to day as an operator to then have challenges and issues with equipment that should be a no-brainer. But then as a supplier, I chuck that hat on and I say, well, it's complicated. There's a lot of moving parts. Some members hang upside down from a functional rack thinking that that's the new exercise they've seen on social media. So I think it's a balance, and you've got to communicate really well. But blessed to have worked with some of the great operators in Australia and learn a lot from them. And also on this side, from a supply point, work with some great companies. So I enjoy it. It's an awesome industry to be a part of, and I've really learned a lot at both sort of supplier and operator roles.
Yeah, no, it's really interesting. So would you say, generally in Australia, I mean, there are many challenges, as you point out, but what I'm seeing globally, and, I don't know as much, obviously, about Australia as you do, but is certain levels of competition have gone up significantly in certain markets. And secondly, is the competition for labor. Do you see those? I mean, what other kind of challenges do you see that our operators are facing right now that are your customers?
Yeah, Australia has an unemployment rate of about 4 or 5%, so it's quite low. And geographically, we're a big country. We have 25 million people, but the distance from one side of the country to the other is, a 7-hour flight. So it is a large country. So recruitment and retainment of talent can be quite challenging. And I think in the fitness industry, particularly around personal trainers and club managers and front of house staff, recruitment and training and retention of those staff is definitely a challenge. You've got, you could reel off 10, 15 high quality brands, great companies that are operating out of Australia that are after the same talent. And so there's a lot of good things happening, but that means that the choice for a person joining an organization is quite large. And so as an operator, and even for us, trying to recruit the right people and then keep them is a challenge. And I think that's not necessarily just in Australia, but personal training is probably something that really suffered outside of COVID. I think prior to that, it was there was like a target of one trainer per 200 members in facilities, and that was quite a good average in Australia prior to COVID. But post-COVID, a lot of those kind of filtered away and found other opportunities, and I think that's still a gap. I think personal trainers in Australia, there's still an opportunity there, and to your point earlier, the pendulum swing right. The more we get away from things that we used to do, sometimes personal trainers created great results. I remember back in my day with the Good Life Polo on, training clients, and there was impact, there was results, there was good quality outcomes, and so we don't want to get away from that, and hopefully that can be re-sparked. And I know a lot of the organisations here in Australia are doing a lot of great work to bring people back in and draw them back to the fitness industry, which I think is exciting.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think you're right. It's in the trends report, we talked about remote training too, and these different things where some trainers, I think, kind of left the bricks and mortar as their primary distribution point and became more independent as a result, the quality ones, as a result of being able to reach an audience via digital. Do you see, is that a similar thing that's happened in Australia?
Yeah, I think so too, because the speed in which you can go from having 10 clients to 100 clients it can be addictive. It's pretty lucrative. And you don't have such a heavy burden of overheads and paying rent and working within a facility. But what we did see post-COVID was people just flocked back to gyms. Like they didn't want to work out at home. They wanted human connection. They wanted to be face to face with the people that were helping them. And I think there's still obviously a place for that remote, on-demand, virtual world. But it's probably a hybrid now where you need to have both. And the good ones, the good trainers and the good facilities are doing both. They're activating clients outside of the facility, but also when they're in there, they've got them and they're pouring time into them. So, wellness and fitness is the 360-degree, 24-hour-a-day kind of setup now. People are monitoring how often they sleep. People are monitoring what time they're waking up, what they're eating. And I think trainers and facilities that are supporting members outside of just their bricks and mortar are the ones that have got great retention rates and are really drawing forward.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Mm.
So we had some interesting chats about leadership, you and I, when we were together. And one of the things I found of interest is that you enjoy some of the Stoic stuff. And today, I don't know what all your perspective is on this. I think we shared a few thoughts on this when we were together. But today, being a CEO, as you are, you like Simon Sinek talks about, the role of work today has really evolved, where people don't go to church as much. Families, tend to be, there's a higher divorce rate. Families have changed their composition. People are seeking purpose and meaning, and a lot of this is being channeled through their jobs. And so, having purpose, having meaning in what you're doing becomes, in the culture of an organization, arguably could become really important. At the same time, it creates all kind of dynamics of what's required of you. Yeah. What are your thoughts and experiences on that dynamic?
Yeah, I think the Stoics really interest me because it's from, it's 2,000 years ago, and 2,000 years ago there wasn't the online network that we now have and the fire hose of information that you receive. And I'm sure there was challenges back then, but there seemed to be a lot more space to think. And what I loved about it, and Marcus Aurelius and all these philosophers, Seneca, they talk about it's an inside game. It's an inside job, and I think in our day to day, in the 2025, there's so much information, and it's all external where you're getting that. And generally, ChatGPT is my new best buddy. I ask that many questions when maybe I should just sit with it for a moment and think about it myself. And I think that's what I really enjoy about it. Is it's quite simple. It's old, but it's new, and it's very relevant. It's very human, and I think it applies particularly with leadership and people. It's very simple, and mainly it's an inside job, is what I would say. Is what I like about it. Is it forces me to reflect and think about, well, what's my role in this, and how am I showing up, rather than looking externally for that. And what that does is, I think, is the people around you feel the authentic vibe. They feel the genuine reason that you're trying to help them, and be there is just to be there and do that. Servant leadership is something that I've been lucky enough to work under people that show up that way, and so inspiring me to then pass that on to others has been a real treat as part of this role. So, I think having a framework like Stoicism and philosophy gives you something to always go back to, and it's quite a simple framework. So, that's probably in a nutshell. I like reading stuff from a guy from 2,000 years ago, and I was so glad to hear that you liked Ryan Holiday's. He puts it into relevant context and speaks to the modern day world, and joining the dots. I think I couldn't encourage it more for people to go out and look at it, and really explore the inside job that it is, that it helps you do.
Yeah, no, I agree. I don't think we talked about this, but similarly to the Stoics is Carlos Castaneda and his writings in the 70s in the United States, where he talks about being a warrior. And the idea is that a warrior isn't a person that ever reflects the things that happen to them as being good or bad. It's an idea that you're always challenged with getting better, and you don't look at the externalities as the things that determine who you are and who you can become. Easy said in a world where you're distracted by your phone every 10 seconds, right?
I think, one of the virtues that Ryan Holiday talks about is the discipline. And I think creating that space between, the world and its requirements and what you're thinking and how you're responding to that, to what you were just saying, it's easier said than done, but the discipline of being able to work on it, I think, is in itself is a great thing to focus on. And it keeps you aligned and hopefully centered. And sometimes you're off track and things pull you away and distract you, but if you can come back into that, I think you're set up pretty well. And helping people, it's with the intention to support people. And to your point earlier about family and the changing dynamics of society and the way that, that all goes, work is more important than ever for people to come and connect and feel seen and understood, but also supported, inspired, motivated. Yeah. And so, we're going around full circle.
Yeah, I think so. In that trend report I shared, talking about ideas like the cost of hesitation, the idea of authentic experiences where people are actually starting to go, I got to turn this off. I need to. I'm dumbing down the technology I use because the juice isn't worth the squeeze. And you look at the authentic experience desire, and then you have technology, which, like Kevin Kelly talks about, technology emerges to solve our current set of perceived problems, but then it creates all these unanticipated new problems that the next wave of technology is going to supposedly solve, and then it starts all over again.
Evolution, right? I think it's that's where it's coming from. And look, I have 2 young kids, and I watch them and encourage them to be authentic and explore and be adventurous. And but they're the next wave of talent that are coming into our workforce and our industries are very different. Their onboarding to life has been completely different to ours, and I think you need to acknowledge that and support it. And I think young talent and young leadership is going to be a good driving force behind what happens next in our industry for sure.
No, I agree with that. It's I think that it's just going to be really curious to see in the marketplace in the next 5 to 10 years how all of that shows up. What does it result in? I mean, I've always felt that the greatest business models and concepts haven't been invented yet. And so, especially as you get older, you look back, at least I do, on 30 or 40 years ago and what was going on. You look at today and then you wonder, at least I do, what is that going to look like in 10 years? Can I even anticipate it? I talk about it and talk about what might be, but it's hard to know, especially with what's happening between demographic shifts, technology advancements, global trade, all these things that are going on that can all be upended, and you just don't know what the consequences of all that might be for the good or for the bad.
Yeah, no, it's a good point. I mean, the rate at what change is happening is faster than ever before. And I attended a leadership conference a little while back, and the facilitator presented 2 images of change. And the first one was, how we anticipate change is like a wave. You've got before the wave is how it currently is. The wave comes in, washes over, and then what's left over is the new. When the reality is it's more like a waterfall coming through a crash of rocks and going in all different directions, coming in sometimes at a rapid pace, sometimes slower, but generally it's quite constant, that it's ever evolving. And I think trying to hold on to that is probably fraught with danger, but embracing it and being ready for it is an exciting thing, and sometimes not always easy, but change tends to be for the good. And it's an interesting time ahead, that's for sure.
And hence the need to have a Stoic philosophy, which focuses on yourself in the realm of all those waves crashing over your head all the time, right?
Yeah, make us feel a little safer. It's like, okay, I've got a couple of things that keep me grounded, and I can deal with this. And again, the framework of being able to apply most things to that allows you to deal with those things at a much better perspective, I think.
No, I agree. So tell me, Barry, kind of wrapping up, I always like to ask leaders like yourself, and again, thanks for being here for our listeners. It's really an honor to have you on. I appreciate you having me. So, I'm so glad we got to chat. So, you've been through a lot, you've learned a lot, you've been around, you've seen things, and I always like to ask people like you, are there any pearls of wisdom? There's a lot of younger people that, younger than us, or even our, colleagues that, are always going to be seeking wisdom. And so any pearls of wisdom you might share that you've learned over your career that you think are important for people to keep in mind?
Yeah, I think, am I wise? I'd say I'm experienced. I've learned, and I've had an open mind, and education being one of my high values. Like I love learning and consuming information, but I think never take yourself too seriously is an important one for me. If you can stick by that, I think you'll show up in an authentic way that people will respond to and support you through. I think also be willing to take on things that are uncomfortable. Our friend Marcus Aurelius said, like, comfort is the worst addiction. And so for me, the last 12 months in a CEO role has been a challenge. But I mean, every day I wake up enthused with what's ahead, because even jumping on this, it's like, well, this is going to be uncomfortable. But like the energy that I felt from that and embracing that was cool. And so I think, never take yourself too seriously, and be open for challenges and be adventurous in that, and have fun. Like, life's too short to waste heartbeats on things that weigh you down. Like, have some fun while you're doing it. And yeah, I mean, I'm a serious guy still. Like, we're talking philosophy and stoicism, but I think there's a balance that you got to have, and you got to work hard and be professional, but you also need to keep it real. So that probably, if that's wise, I'm not sure, but that's what's got me to this point.
I think that's wise, Barry. I think that's a lot of wisdom. I think it's easier said than done at times, but it is.
Oh yeah.
I think it's true, because we are on this planet. We're just passing through. We're not here that long. So I think having that perspective on not taking yourself too seriously and trying to have fun while you're doing what you need to do is a pretty smart way to think about it all. Barry, what a pleasure. Great people at NovoFit. We're delighted to spend some time sharing your views, and I can't wait to see you again. Are you going to be coming in for any shows this year to the States?
NovoFit and myself will be up at FIBO. So it's an important one for us, the clients, and come and see our partners. And we'll be at FIBO, and obviously some Australian events coming up this year. But always enjoy getting to those, and look forward to catching up with you soon. Thanks so much for having me, and appreciate all you're doing, and let's keep spreading the good word.
Thank you, and congrats on all your success. And thanks again for making time and visiting and sharing your insights and wisdom, my friend.
Thanks, Bryan. Cheers.
Hello, listeners. This is Bryan O'Rourke, and thanks so much for listening to the Fitness Plus Technology Podcast. The podcast is made possible by the Fitness Industry Technology Council, a consortium of global brands working together to enhance the adoption of technologies in the fitness space. Our company, Videri Ventures, which is invested in Vertimax, Montezuma, Gold's Gym, Houston, Texas, and Fitness 24/7 Thailand, also underwrites the podcast, along with our service companies, Integris Advisors, Moon Mission Media, and others. Please feel free to share this podcast with your colleagues. And if I can be of any assistance to you, don't hesitate to reach out, bryanko'rourke@gmail.com, or find me on any of the major social networks. Have a great day, and thanks for listening.